Happens if we wanted to inject our dynamic module with dependencies from the application module. Well, the application component is not aware that this second activity exists, so it cannot inject it. In addition, we cannot build an inject method for the application component to try to inject our second activity. Let's see how we can fix that. We'll start by exposing the split install manager instance through the application component. This will allow other dagger components that depend on the application component to use this instance. So let's expose dagger and Blacor SDK Gradle dependencies. We will need to create the dagger component specifically to inject our second activity. So let's go ahead and create a new file and call it second activity component. This file will contain the interface for our second activity component. We will use a component annotation and supply the application component as a dependency that is needed to build this component. And since we are injecting second activity, we will add an inject function so we can do this injection. Our dynamic module has a separate lifetime from the application. We install it after the application starts and we delete it before the application is closed. So we are going to create a new dagger scope for our dynamic module and use it in the second activity component. Annotation retention must be set to runtime to make it available for dagger through reflection. We'll go ahead and apply the scope on second activity component. Since we created a new component in our dynamic module, we'll need to run dagger compiler. So let's modify the build.gradle file and include KVT plugin and use KVT to run the dagger compiler. Let's build our project and generate this new component. We will add a call to inject the second activity using this generated component. And we will add a field for the split install manager to be injected by dagger. You will notice that we need the application component to build the second activity component. So how can we get an instance of application component? Right now, application component instance is part of our main activity in the base module. And one way we can fix that is hosting this application component instance in our application class. So let's go ahead and do just that. We'll create a new application class and add a field pointing to an application component instance. We'll use let_init since we are initializing it on onCreate method. Let's override the onCreate and add the code to build the application component. Let's add a convenience extension method to grab the application component instance from the application class. This extension will cast the application instance to myApplicationType and return the application component. We will need to modify the Android manifest for our base module and replace application name from split compat application to myApplication. Finally, let's make sure we are inheriting from a split compat application in our myApplication class. We'll go back to main activity and refactor the injection code to use the already created application components instance that's living in the application. Then in our second activity, we are now able to get the application component instance and build our second activity component. Let's do a quick test run for the application. You can see that it built as expected with no issues, and the main activity and the second activity started with no problems.